Hey everyone, welcome back to Buzzworthy. I'm your host, Shlacey Harris. I dive into the rare stories entrepreneurs tell about building their businesses, but most importantly, themselves. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Buzzworthy, everyone. I'm your host, Shlacey Harris, and today we have a female founder of mine who's part of this very tight-knit group, Sydney Robinson from Vessl, and she has literally been crushing it over the last year, doing things I know she didn't think she would ever be doing. And she's here to tell us the story of, building Vessl, but also building herself as an entrepreneur through this entire journey. So, Sydney, the first question we love asking our entrepreneurs is, what do you think set you up to be an entrepreneur to kickstart the journey of Vessl Prosthetics?
Well, Shalicia, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and to have this conversation with you. And honestly, I think that what helped me start my entrepreneurial journey was a sense of open-mindedness. So I like to characterize my career journey as really just following where the open doors might take me, or by trying to keep my doors open, kind of both of those. And I think that that really wraps up into keeping my mind open. And I started doing engineering because I knew it would keep my doors open. People tell you it's a very employable field. So that was why I went into engineering in the first place. I was good at math and science, seemed like a good next step. And then I started going more into like medical because that was really where my passion was, but also because I thought that it would keep my doors open. And I did a fellowship program at Western University that was all about entrepreneurship because I was interested in entrepreneurship. And also, I thought that the skills that I would get within that cohort would really keep my doors open and help me develop some soft skills for future career opportunities. And little did I know, as you're kind of hinted at, that I would become so passionate about a problem that we were working on at the time. It was in the prosthetics industry, and prosthetics has always had a sweet spot for me. So I really honed in on that. And then also on the fact that I met someone during that program who we worked really well together, and he eventually became my co-founder. And so it just felt like such a gift being given that in this fellowship position. So I feel as though keeping an open mind throughout my academic journey, but then also through this fellowship program where we were learning about entrepreneurship, that was really what helped me start the company.
I love that. I don't think anyone else has ever really started why, answering the question of what they think set them up as an entrepreneur in that way. And I think it's so fascinating in keeping those doors open because when sometimes you keep doors open, did you find yourself keeping too many doors open? Because then there's like decision paralysis and what do you actually choose? What is the actual thing that I need to move forward with? Because open-mindedness is absolutely key in entrepreneurship. And I love that that is the focus that you took. But then when you're so open, the choices are endless. And when you have endless choices, that's a hard place to be sometimes. How
Yeah,
did you
it was
navigate
even,
that?
yeah, it was even having a list of choices, I think would have been really nice. I feel like I didn't even have a list of choices. Like I just had this blurry blob of wide open space. Do you know what I mean? I was
Mhm.
keeping myself so open that I didn't even have a clear picture of what my options could be. It was just a vast open space of whatever you want your future to look like, which is not helpful when you're trying to make decisions. So certainly at
Yeah.
some points it was like, I went into engineering and you can choose any discipline within engineering. And so when I had too many options on the table, I did a little bit more of um, process of elimination. And so I would say, okay, well,
Okay.
I know these things over here I definitely don't want to do as much as I want to keep my doors open. I don't like these doors. And so I'll
Yeah.
focus my energy over here on things that will keep my options open, but I also actually am passionate about.
I think that's such a good way of actually doing it because I think a lot of people find themselves in this place where they're just like, everything I do, I don't like. I really don't like it. But that's actually a very, very good thing because in this process, you're just closing all the doors that just aren't meant for you if you've given it enough of a go. And then once you find the doors that are right for you, it's so easy to just walk through them, which you absolutely did. And you just let those doors kind of go from one door to the next door to the next door, which would be like your engineering to, being interested in the medical fields and then entrepreneurship. And then eventually creating Vessl from there. So you were really a student in sort of university and a student of life in so many ways as well, too. Um, did you ever think it was just too early to become an entrepreneur at that age?
I think I just didn't know any better. So no, the thought didn't really cross my mind as much. I think you also see in the media, so and so was 15 when they started the idea of XYZ. So I was
Hmm.
exposed to media around really young entrepreneurs. So I didn't feel intimidated. By the
Okay.
time I started Vessel, scratch that, I did feel intimidated. And I still had the naivety to think that I could do it myself. I had enough of a career in academia behind me that I still felt knowledgeable in a lot of areas. And I
Hmm.
felt as though I knew at least some of what I didn't know and could kind of start there on the journey.
Yeah.
But certainly it was filled with a lot of ups and downs and a lot of things that, yeah, I didn't know and I had to learn on the fly because I was starting from a place where I didn't have a deep career background to fall on.
Hmm. So you just sometimes it's, hard to determine, do you go and find a career or do you build a career for yourself and build a company for yourself? And that's where you found your place. And I just think it's incredible because even when you talk about that moment, it's really the root of it comes back to the open-mindedness of it, right? Because sometimes we don't think that that's an option. I remember when I graduated university, it was just like, just get a great job at one of the, big Fortune 500 companies within marketing where you can do all these crazy fun things. And like that was the goal. Starting a company was just not in it was not an option for me, not because I didn't want it to be an option. I just never thought someone coming out of university would just be able to just do that. So I'm like, super impressed by, you know, and I think like you said, a bit of naivety is not like that bad of a thing. You know, I think that little area where like courage and curiosity and that risk taken, not knowing the weight of the risk around it, kind of really pushes you to grow exponentially one yourself because you're going to learn a hell of a lot and then go into this new world and start navigating it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm glad I didn't know everything I was getting myself into when I started. I like to think that I would still have made the same choice.
Yeah.
But it's not an easy journey being an entrepreneur.
Hmm. Yeah. So around, the time that you were in the entrepreneurial program, you were going through um this with your co-founder at the time. I mean, your co-founder now. What was it about prosthetics and what did you find in that program that really sparked that opportunity? What was that moment like? What were the things you were seeing as themes that helped you identify this problem? Because every
Yeah.
business has to be surrounded by a problem in some capacity. Like, where were you and like how did prosthetics really stand out? Because you mentioned it was close to you as well.
Yeah, for sure. So with the fellowship program that we were doing, it was in the medical space. but they didn't prescribe a certain problem you had to work on. Each year, the team was very different. You had engineers, PhD scientists, and doctors who would come together to innovate within medicine, but you weren't necessarily always getting orthopedic surgeons as the doctors and mechanical engineers as the engineers. You could have computer engineers one year and electrical
Mm.
engineers one year. Like it always changed up. So the composition of the team was always different. And therefore, the interests of the team, the skill sets of the team, that was also constantly changing. So they didn't want to prescribe a certain project that you had to work on in case the team wasn't well suited to that. And what that meant was
Hmm.
that as the first couple months of the program got started, and keep in mind, we only had 10. So the first couple of months, you really spent those months just looking for problems to solve within medicine. And we came up after interviewing, over 60 clinicians. We came up
Wow.
with a list of like 200 different problems that we could work on because I'm sure, as you've noticed, no shortage of issues in the Canadian medical
Yeah.
healthcare system. But what that meant was we could be really creative and explore what we were passionate about. So we shadowed a doctor at a diabetes clinic in Hamilton, and diabetes is the leading cause of leg amputation. And so we
Hmm.
met a lot of people visiting the clinic that day who had leg amputations. And a lot of them were in the clinic because their prosthetic leg didn't fit properly on their anatomical leg. And we were like, that seems like a really important part of having a prosthetic leg
Yeah.
is that it fits well. I wonder why
Hmm.
that hasn't been fixed yet. And that took us down this rabbit hole of what was currently available and what the current challenges were and what a day in the life of an amputee is and a day in the life of the prosthetist looks like. And we interviewed so many different people living with amputation and limb difference, and also prosthetists and a bunch of other healthcare providers like physiotherapists that work with people with leg amputations, and just learned
Hmm.
so much about the problem. It was very easy to become passionate about it and to just fall in
Yeah.
love with the community that we were working with. And it became very clear to us that this was a massive global issue that really needed solving.
Wow. I'm aware that, a lot of diabetic patients get eventually, if they're not taking care of themselves, can lead to amputation of their legs. And like when you don't have mobility, that takes like a huge toll on you mentally, physically, in every capacity. It puts a strain on the people around you because of the extra support that you would need in so many ways. And I can't imagine the life-changing experiences that you must hear and these stories you hear through meeting with these amputees and just trying to do basic things in their lives. Was there any,
Absolutely.
yeah, was there any story that like stood out to you?
100%. 100%. So
Yeah.
you go out for dinner. And I don't know if you're a beer drinker, I'm not, but you drink some beer or you drink some wine and you have a nice
Hmm.
pizza and it's an artisanal pizza, but it's made with North American gluten. So you feel a little puffy after. And you wake up the next morning and you're just feeling a little bloated. And for able-bodied individuals, you put on some leggings or some pants with a tie, and it can accommodate for that little bit of a puffy feeling. When I was speaking to one of the amputees that we were chatting with, he was saying that if he has, beer and pizza, the next morning, he actually can't fit his leg into his prosthetic because it's so swollen. He just can't get it on. And I love pizza. And I was thinking, oh my God, so you have to watch what you eat to such an extent because you can't fit into your prosthesis the next day? Or we chatted
Hmm.
with another gentleman and he would put his leg on in the morning, walk around, make breakfast, do the whole thing, get in his car, drive to work. So let's call that an hour, maybe total
Yeah.
from time awake to the time he gets to work. Um, by the time he got to work, he had to take his leg off, put a sock on, and put his leg back on because his leg had shrunk. So he needs these socks to kind of make up for the extra space inside of his prosthetic leg. And that's how people manage it right now, current gold standard.
Hmm.
And he had to do that as soon as he got to work. He'd only been awake for an hour. And so he's carrying these socks around with him all day and finding places at work where he can stop, excuse himself, take his leg off, put a sock on. Maybe that's fine
Yeah.
for certain individuals, but there are people that are self-conscious and don't really want to take their leg off in public or at
Yeah.
work. And so it just hit us how debilitating the problem was, frustrating the problem was, and how inconvenient and honestly a huge burden it can be.
Yeah. That I can't imagine that because an hour from waking up, I'm still going really slow in the kitchen. I'm trying to feed myself. And to
Yeah.
have to consider all of that, I can see how this is such an incredible problem. And
Yeah.
I'm even more thankful and grateful for my legs right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never thought those words would come out of my mouth, but
Mm.
when I when you see how other people live and the challenges that they have, like it puts everything into perspective. And so you seeing that and your team being able to identify that as such a great opportunity to help so many people
Mhm.
and bring them back some time, some comfort, some
Yeah,
dignity,
for
in
sure.
so
And
many ways.
absolutely. And these people that are living with limb loss and limb difference, like a lot of them live very fulfilling lives, right? They've got kids
Hmm.
or grandkids, they've got a job, like
Yeah.
they're moving and shaking. They're doing their thing and it's amazing. Just like anybody else. The thing that
Hmm.
really hit home for me was here's this issue that just doesn't have to be there. Like it's so frustrating and annoying and uncomfortable. You can get a blister that gets infected. You have to stop wearing your leg for sometimes weeks while the blister heals.
Wow.
Um, that's the part where I was like, okay, they've got the fulfilling life thing down pat. It's
Hmm.
this piece that's super annoying and debilitating and can lead to poor health outcomes. That's what
Yeah.
I want to fix. Just because I feel like that was the inequity piece of this condition.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. It's incredible to me that you were able to, immerse yourself in this very new environment and look for problems. And I'll challenge you to maybe even go back a little more because not everyone is that curious. Do you think your curiosity was developed over time, or had you just been a curious little Sydney from 3 years old?
That is a good question, Shalicia. That's a very good question. I would say I've always been curious. I've definitely always
Hmm.
been curious. I don't know where curiosity bleeds into like type A, I need to know so I can control the situation. Like I don't know, I don't know
Hmm.
where you delineate that.
Yeah.
Because I certainly had a little mix of both. But no, I would say that I've always been very curious. And as I've gotten as I've gotten older, I have noticed how important it is to me to grow as an individual. And I
Hmm.
feel as though curiosity is a really important part of growth, of
Yeah.
personal growth, career growth, whatever growth you want to talk about. I have been very passionate about personal growth for a long time. And I feel as though curiosity is a major element of that. So I have fostered it as I've grown and I don't say aged, but as I've moved through life, I've really fostered
Yeah.
curiosity. And so I think that you're right. That is a key ingredient in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, because you can put so many people into the exact same room, the exact same situation, and the questions may not come for everyone. And so I think for entrepreneurship, it is such an important thing. And I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, it's maybe a little bit innate. Maybe we need to do a poll on that or something to see, how many entrepreneurs feel like they were just sort of born curious versus they've developed this curiosity. But I do think everyone can develop it. It's just about going deeper and deeper
Oh yeah.
and deeper
Oh yeah.
with anything that might spark a little bit of your interest.
Oh, for sure. And for me, it's interesting as you were talking and talking about entrepreneurship and curiosity. I think that for me, it overlaps with my love of people. I just really
Hmm.
love connecting with other human beings. And I
Yeah.
am a naturally curious person, very much a naturally curious person in that part of life. And so
Yeah.
I think it was easy for me once I got curious about, well, what is a day in the life of an amputee like? What is a day in the life of a prosthetist like? Once I could dive into that kind of curiosity of how can I connect with the individual and their lived experience, then it was
Hmm.
really easy to want to make a change and innovate and help the situation however I can, because now I've connected with the individual, which also really helps with networking in
Yeah.
entrepreneurship.
It certainly does. It certainly does. So now that you've found this problem at this clinic, and it is profound, it's a big, big problem. Where did you decide that this should be a business? Because you are just in
Mhm.
a fellowship program. Nothing has to commercialize, nothing has to translate into real life solution. This is just, another sort of academic exercise, if you want to put it simply.
For
What
sure.
made you say, let's take this to the real world?
Yeah. For me, I was just talking to another individual who I'd met about this exact topic, which was I didn't want to regret not trying it. So
Mm,
I had de-risked it to a place where I thought it made sense. So throughout the fellowship, we didn't spend a whole ton of time on the solution. Honestly, we didn't really do all that much product development or solution ideation. We really
yeah.
focused on the problem. So we were trying to identify what is the problem? What are the design parameters around the problem? So that was what got into what's a day in the life like of all the people along the patient journey, and how do those
Hmm.
pieces interact to create constraints around the design itself and what that solution will eventually look like. And what does the market look like? As you identify, this is a profound problem, but how profound, right? How
Yeah.
global? How many people a year? Where can we make a difference? What does the reimbursement structure look like, both in Canada, in the United States, in Europe? Like, let's start exploring what some of the business elements of this could look like, because we felt
Hmm.
as though if we couldn't commercialize the product that we were eventually going to make, whatever that product looked like, then we wouldn't be able to bring this solution to anyone anyways. So we wanted to answer some of those business questions. So by the time the fellowship was coming to an end, I had conviction that this was a massive global issue, that we knew at least some, obviously you're constantly learning, but we knew at least
Yeah.
some of what those design parameters were going to look like and what those business parameters were going to look like.
Hmm.
And I already had the start of a team. So I had my co-founder, Alexi. We really liked working together. We really liked doing totally separate parts of the business. So I never was worried
Hmm.
about us fighting over doing the same jobs and not having anyone to do some of the other jobs. We were very
Yeah.
clear in what we liked to work on. So that was super helpful. And I just looked at this and I said to myself, I will never have the opportunity again to be supported while coming up with an idea. Like I was paid to just think of different ideas and explore different
Hmm.
problems in the medical space. I will never get that opportunity again. And here I have a problem that I'm deeply passionate about. I love the prosthetics industry. I've always loved it, and I have someone who I like working with. Like that is not common. And so it
No.
just felt for me like it would be a really big wasted opportunity if I didn't at least try.
Yeah. I think it's really profound the way you looked at everything and realized this opportunity right in front of you.
Hmm.
Because you're right, not very many people get the opportunity to just sit and look for problems and fix it. I have a friend, his name's Patel, that's what I call him. And he's an engineer as well. And he's just like, I just want to build things. I just want to create things. But where is that opportunity to actually do that, like you said?
Mhm.
And it's incredible that there was a program you found and was able to do this because you're right. And it felt like all of these doors that you were closing put you through this one door where everything just sort of fell into place with your co-founder. And like you said, it's hard finding a co-founder. I know that I've looked for one for years. It's never transpired. Um, and um, and you're working on two different parts of the business that you love, so there is no competition. There's simple cohesiveness, symbiotics. You bring different skills to the table, you bring different viewpoints, and nothing else makes a better business than having, two people, because now you have 48 hours in a day. You have that much more skill, that much more brain power. And I think that alone, with all the research and the deep understanding of the problem, really set you up for the trajectory that you sort of put Vessel on, like from the very beginning. Because I think a lot of people, when they come into entrepreneurship, they want to be an entrepreneur. They really don't understand the depths of the problem that they're trying to solve. And I'm not saying like that's a bad thing, but the deeper you go, the stronger your understanding, then the better and the more curated the customer that you're about to serve. And you already knew your customer so well. You knew the problem inside out. So then that obviously set you up for a fantastic business, which you have been doing incredible work on,
Thank you.
like your fundraising. But before we even get there, um, talk to us about the design of your solution and how you did that, and maybe what were some of the challenges coming into this business world out of an academic experience.
For sure. It was certainly a tight-knit industry to break into. So one of the biggest challenges I would say is that prosthetics is a world unto itself. There's, a lot of people know everybody in the industry, and it's a lot lies with the prosthetist. They're the experts here. So we really had to, there comes back to that open-mindedness. You really had to be able to take feedback and listen to the experts in the space. I'd say that was one of the bigger challenges, not being a prosthetist myself. Uh,
Hmm.
our design relates to that poor socket fit I was mentioning, where the leg is changing size, whether it's from diet, as I had mentioned in my kind of story, or it could be exercise, weight fluctuations, the seasons, even. Like there's all these different reasons why a limb would change size. And the prosthetic leg is basically a carbon fiber or plastic bucket that is custom fabricated to the leg, but doesn't change size. So you have this dynamic
Hmm.
limb inside of a static socket, and that is the root cause of the issue. And so we created this automatically adjusting system. So it relies on custom panels on the leg. You can think like cutout windows that are able to move
Hmm.
in and out against the leg. And it's powered by walking motion. So it just uses a shock absorber and the step that each amputee takes. And it uses that to adjust and tighten oftentimes the panels against the leg to a set comfort level. So it will always try and
Hmm.
maintain a consistent level of pressure on the leg. It's not about the size, it's about the fit.
I'm just so mind blown, but this is what engineers do. That's what you
Thank
are.
you. This is what we try and do. That's for sure.
Yeah. There's so many things that, like, for the inspiration of the solution, because obviously we don't want to give away your secret sauce, what was the inspiration behind finding something like that as a solution? Because one, knowing the problem is one thing, but how to solve it in a practical way is a whole other bucket.
For sure. Well, for us, it was as you get to know the problem, it starts to become obvious what that solution needs to be, or at least what the parameters of the solution need to be. So
Hmm.
we knew that it had to be adjustable because you need to be able to keep up with this dynamic leg. And we really wanted it to be automatic because a lot of the frustration that both prosthetists and amputees felt was that they had to stop what they were doing to make an adjustment, whether that was to adjust an adjustable socket. So there are manually adjustable sockets on the market where you tighten a
Hmm.
strap or you twist a dial and make the change yourself. But that still relies on you to make the change. So if you've ever gotten a
Yeah.
blister on your foot, you don't often know you've gotten the blister until you've gotten the blister. Whereas it would be nice if you could avoid it in the first place. And so
Hmm.
having the socket adapt on its own and not rely on input from the user, that was a critical point for us. But we also wanted to design with the end user in mind. So we didn't want to have some super high tech, sensors, batteries, motors that adds all of this complexity and reduces the durability and adds cost and weight. We wanted something that could be simple and elegant, lightweight, could be easily integrated into what prosthetists are already doing, and what
Hmm.
amputees didn't need to rely on a power source. So they didn't have to charge it overnight to avoid it falling off in the grocery store the next day. We wanted something that would, stand the test of time. And so that
That'd be
was
an
where
absolute disaster.
right? That would not be ideal. Not
Yeah.
ideal. So we came up with this, well, what if you could just power it from movement? Like you're already moving. So let's just use that.
Hmm.
And then we looked at what was already available on the market. And, shock absorbers have existed for a long time and people really like them. So we're like, okay, well, could we use this shock absorbing energy from walking motion? Could we use that to automatically adapt the socket? And that was really where the inspiration came from.
Wow. I'm so impressed. So
Thank you.
impressed.
Thank you.
And just so everyone knows, this is the first time I'm really learning like the depths of Vessel and the prosthetic that they're actually creating. And I know that something like this can easily be, translated to like other perhaps prosthetics, right? Not just for the leg. But Sydney, as you went through all of this, this is so much learning for someone, you know, that's young, that's never really had a full-time job somewhere else. Like, how did you find managing yourself and your team and your co-founder as you were developing this? Because the creation of what you're doing is one thing, but behind the scenes, behind the curtain, sometimes there's so many other things happening. Like, what was your mindset going through all these things? Because you're going hurdle after hurdle. And like you said, you're in an industry that's pretty tight knit and sometimes often closed off to like the very few experts. And you not being a prosthetist yourself, you being like a young student out of university and out of the academic world coming in saying, I can do it better. That's a
Yeah,
hard thing for other people to absorb, right?
for sure.
Sometimes there's so much ego involved in, well, my solution's better. I'm the expert. I know. You weren't the expert. You're just an outsider viewing this. How did you, find the confidence within yourself, to know that your solution made sense and, you can do this and you can make a difference in this industry and you can penetrate it as well?
Yeah, there's a lot of questions there
Yeah.
that are all so good. There's so many ways I could take this. I would say, in terms of breaking into the industry, what was really nice is that our solution is integrated into what prosthetists are already doing. So they're still the ones that are fabricating the socket itself. We're basically an
Mhm.
addition to what they do. And what's nice about that is that I don't have to be the expert because they are the expert. So really, we are a tool in a prosthetist toolkit that can empower them to, use their time in the most effective manner and to help more amputees and to help them in the most efficient way. So really, we're just trying to empower prosthetists. They are still definitely the experts in this industry. So I think that that
Mhm.
was really helpful, is, as you're saying, I'm not someone who's coming in being like, this is a better way of doing things. I'm
Yeah.
coming in saying, hey, I've heard that this is really frustrating. We've built a tool that can help it not be as frustrating. So that was really
Mhm.
helpful. I feel, in terms of managing yourself and your co-founder and your employees, that took a lot of adjustment. I would say when you start the company, what was really helpful for me was to rely on mentors and advisors. Because if you can surround yourself with people that have been there, done that, and you can listen to
Mhm.
their advice, you can avoid a ton of pitfalls. You're still going to make mistakes. Don't worry,
Yeah.
but you at least won't make all of them. And so I found that really, really helpful. I was able to streamline what we were doing and be as efficient as possible. We still took too long because everyone takes too long, but you avoided a lot of the pitfalls. When managing myself, it was really important to have a growth mindset that wasn't too ego driven and wasn't too like, oh, this isn't coming easily to me, so I'm just going to give up. It was,
Mhm.
you know what, we're going to figure this out. And I don't know it yet because I don't know it yet, but I'm going to learn it. And then we're going to figure it out and go for it and go from there. So just having that kind of tenacity and resilience was extremely important, that growth mindset.
Mhm.
Having the mindset, honestly, this was the hardest part for me, was everything is iterative. So you make a pitch deck, and then you're going to have to make another pitch deck a couple months later. And then you're going to have
Mhm.
to edit it and make another pitch deck a couple months later. And I was used to, I don't know if you can relate to this, in academia, you do a school project and then you're done. And then
You
you
get a
go and do
grade?
another thing, right? You get a grade,
Mhm.
move on. And that's not how entrepreneurship works. Everything is an iterative process. So that was a big shift for me, and took me
Yeah.
a little bit to get used to that. I would say I'm used to it and annoyed, but used to it now. So there's
Yeah.
that.
But how do you manage it yourself personally? Because it's obviously an experience that you go through. But like how does Sydney talk herself through, being annoyed by it or being focused on that growth mindset to actually get you through those tough moments when you just don't want to do the thing that you just don't want to do because it's annoying, it's hard, you just don't know enough about it. Um, and you have to spend that time building those skills.
Yeah, I mean, how much do you want to know? Like, I went to therapy because I think that that's really important for founders. So there were times when
Mhm.
I was really struggling and I was like, I just need some other ideas to help. I read a lot of books. I don't like to read nonfiction. I love to read fiction. I don't like to read
Mhm.
nonfiction, but I will often listen to an audiobook. So while I'm driving, I listened to, for example, Everything is Figure Outable. And
Mhm.
as the title suggests, it's just a mindset of like you can figure it out. Have you read it?
No, but I've always just had that thought in my mind. That's how I move through the world as long as I've known, is that nothing's really ever a hurdle. It's just how do you figure it out?
We're gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
We're gonna figure it out.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
well, that's awesome that it came naturally to you. It doesn't come as naturally to me, but I'm working on it, and that was super helpful. Just listening to that book. I time block, so I'm still not great at it, but I'm getting better. And what I'll do is I'll block off like 3 hours, and that's my time to do the hard work, the work that's going to take me a while. And I can block off, an hour here, 2 hours there, 3 hours here, just to sit down and do the tough work that you're right. I don't want to do, but I know I have to do it. So time
Mm-hmm.
blocking has been really, really helpful for me. Sometimes having like a tea that I can sip while I'm doing the hard work, like whatever barriers you can remove to make it more enjoyable, I think is super
Mm-hmm.
helpful. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's how I manage myself. And then sometimes you just have to talk to yourself and tell yourself it's going to be okay in your own
Yeah.
brain. And that can be
Mm-hmm.
helpful too.
It's true. It's true. I think everyone has to just figure out like what works for them, what gets them to maybe a place of calm, or what allows them to maybe view the situation differently, which I think is interesting that you listen to fiction books. Um, because one of the themes I'm seeing in a lot of our entrepreneurial conversations this season is having something to do outside of your business allows you to be so much better in the business. And so to take yourself not just out of your business, but out of the world with
Yeah. Oh yeah.
fiction. Just
Love
just
it.
completely disconnect from like the
Love it.
entire world. Do you think that sort of brings you that calm where you can like reapproach the business or whatever challenge, or maybe even help you see things differently?
For sure. Yeah. There's a lot of ways that I like to disconnect. Certainly reading fiction is one of them. And I just love to like bury my face in a really good book and like sit and curl up on a chair, fold myself into a pretzel and read for hours. Like that is my idea of a good time. So you're right. It definitely just gives you some separation. Like you're shutting the brain off, you're
Hmm.
bringing it to this other thing. Um, it allows me to be more present while I am at work. I find that really helpful. I find journaling really helpful for that too. Like get the thoughts
Hmm.
out so you don't have to constantly be mulling them over and over and over again in your head. And then have some friends, have some friends that know what it's like. So they're in, that's why we have our female founder group. Like have some people
Yeah.
that know what it's like. So you can go to them and be like, oh my gosh, can you believe this? And you can talk about it, but also have some friends that don't know what it's like, because it's nice when they can, they ask a question, they're like, how's the business? And you're like, it's great, let's move on. And then you don't have to talk about work and you can just talk about
Hmm.
completely unrelated stuff. I find that really important too, honestly, is
Yeah.
is spending time with other people outside of work.
Yeah. So important. I learned that like 2, 3 years after being like in the business consistently, because when I hit that wall last year, oh my goodness, did I have to really then step back and realize that you can't solve problems so close to the wall. You have to step back from it. And that was such a big learning. And I'm so glad that you've implemented that so early on in your journey. And I guess it shows in so many ways because you are consistent with like the energy you bring to talking about Vessel all the time, because you have that moment to recharge and sort of come back and you're just not, pounding the pavement at every single hour of the day. Because if
Yeah.
you aren't in a good place, you aren't doing great, how can your business do great when you are the driving force behind it?
100%. I said something very similar to that when I was starting this company. I was very aware that people say, you work 24/7 on your company. And it's true that you're thinking about the company 24/7. I think there's no real way to get away from that. But
Hmm.
I knew in advance, like at at the stage when I was starting it, and it's just you and your co-founder, you're like, I am the company. And so if as you're saying, if I'm not doing okay, then the company is not doing okay.
Yeah.
And saying that, I don't know if it's just Queen's engineers, but that was the friend group that said it all the time. We would say, work hard, play hard. And we
Hmm.
would say work smarter, not harder. So I don't want to just be pounding the pavement, putting in hours just to put in hours. I want to put in hours that are effective and efficient and are getting me to my goals. I don't want to just work for the sake of working, just to say that, oh, I stayed up until 3 a.m. working. Okay, good for you. Did you have anything that really came from that? And I've
Yeah.
been really proud of our team's ability to get stuff done in a reasonable amount of time and really keep pushing the business forward without having to burn the candle at both ends all the time. You're certainly burning the candle at both ends sometimes, but not
Sometimes.
all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah. It's absolutely inevitable. And then I think when you also look at that, it's all about like quality,
Yeah.
right? Because I mean, for me personally, I'm not a late night owl, but
No.
but if I was up at 3 a.m. every single day, the quality of my work would suffer
Yeah.
completely. And I think for someone like yourself, I think that's also a really great thing for you because you spent so long pitching and fundraising for this business. And even though you're only on stage for anywhere like from, 1 to 3 to 10 minutes pitching, that's a lot of energy you have to exert in such a small amount of time because you're like laser focused. So tell us about your preparation and was it a year or just about a year you were fundraising?
Let's go with about a year. It's
Yeah,
funny because you're always like, when does it start? When you
start.
start having the conversations, when you start saying your round is open, like what's the start? But yeah, it was like a little bit less than a year.
hmm How did you like mentally prepare for that and knowing that the journey of that is going to be so long and it's also really hard to ask for money and then convince people to join something that isn't, like out there and already successful. Like that's hard to do. So how did you prepare yourself, Sydney, for that? And then how did you prepare the business?
I talked to a lot of other founders to get their guidance and insights, and everybody told me, and thank goodness they did, everyone told me it was going to be the worst experience ever, and it was going to be so hard, and you need to be prepared to hear no over and over and over and over again. And that was
Hmm.
extremely important because then when I did hear no over and over and over again, I was expecting it. So it wasn't as much of a blow to the ego because I already knew it was coming. I was like, oh, this is exactly
Hmm.
what's supposed to happen. Right. I didn't feel like something was wrong with me or wrong with my business. I was like, oh, no, this is what's supposed to happen. And we were raising in 2024, which I mean, 2025 has been also a very tough year to fundraise, but 2024
Yeah.
was a nightmare to fundraise in. So all of I had a very, I would say, clear understanding of how hard it was going to be, which was very helpful. I prepared by getting mentally prepped in the way that I just described, and by
Hmm.
having conversations with investors upfront. So I had a bunch of conversations before we were even really fundraising to say, to learn more about people's theses, to learn more about what they look for in terms of traction at the stage that my company was at, so that I could gauge when to open the round, what I should have in place when I did, and how quickly I would be able to move through and who to go to first. So all of that was really helpful. I was able to create kind of a database of investors that I was going to chat with first or reach out to first. So it was a lot of just like frantic outreach at all hours of the day for the pretty much the whole year. But I did have a plan in place in advance, who I was going after, what that criteria was, the conversations that I had early on that informed that decision making process, and that really helped prepare me for the year ahead.
Yeah, that research, and you seem to be really good at it.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
try. I tried to be realistic about who would actually invest in my company, and
Hmm.
that was helpful.
Yeah. So how did you determine who was good for your company? Because it's not like you just want anybody with money at the end of the day. Yes, that's part of raising money because that's the goal of it. But when you bring an investor into your business, it's, you know. That's a real commitment. That's, now someone you're sort of accountable to in some respect, but you also want to make sure that's a really good relationship for yourself and for the business as well.
For sure. Yeah. You were very accountable to these investors once they've invested in the
Mhm.
company for sure. And I feel so blessed with the investors that we have in this round. Like they are supportive and kind and encouraging and, put our feet to the fire sometimes, but in a really
Yeah.
good way. They really push us. And it's just been such a fantastic opportunity working with them. I would say I knew that our story needed to resonate with investors in order for them to invest. We were
Mhm.
raising a pre-seed round. We did not have a product that was ready to go to market. So we really needed investors that could relate to the story and or envision the impact and or relate to what we were doing. So I targeted four bins of people. I targeted groups that invested in pre-seed, like first check in kind of thing, because
Mhm.
then at least they were going to understand where I was at from a stage perspective and be comfortable with that level of risk. I targeted people that were med tech specific, if I could, because they would
Mhm.
understand what traction is reasonable at my stage of a company because I'm in med tech. And then they're interested in medical technology, which is good because that's what I'm building. I targeted people who were impact focused. Obviously, working with people with leg amputations is extremely impactful and
Yeah.
has the opportunity to be globally impactful. And my co founder is Ukrainian. So, with everything that's going on in Ukraine right now, we are very passionate about doing what we can to support that country and everything that's happening there. So, impact needed to be something that people were passionate about on the social impact side of things, health impact, that kind of deal, disability, inclusion, accessibility. And then the final bin were female founders. Female founders get less than 2% of investment capital still, which is absurd. But I knew that I could speak to people who specifically invested and supported female founders, and my story and my situation would resonate a lot more with those individuals. So that was what I did. I
Mhm.
targeted those four bins as much overlap as possible, right? If someone was investing in pre-seed medical technology that had an impact with a female founder, I mean, that's awesome.
Ooh,
Uh,
ooh,
yeah.
yeah.
You didn't often get the not trifecta, I guess quadfecta,
Mhm.
whatever that
Yeah.
term would be. Seems reasonable. But any amount of overlap between those four categories I thought was really important. And I did start to hone the pitch and my targets kind of as we went. VCs weren't as interested at the stage that we were at. It really resonated more with angels and angel groups and family offices. So that was who I spent more of my time talking to as the fundraise went on. And female founded groups often focus still on software or consumer focused goods. And so I didn't put as much of my focus on kind of female oriented angel or VC groups. So I really
Mhm.
focused more on that med tech and impact kind of pillars that I had.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredibly methodical. And I hope anyone listening and thinking about fundraising, they're going to take so much away from just like how you just simply thought about the
Thank you.
landscape and your strategy in approaching it. And one of the key things you said is like you had to know these people needed to fall in love with your story.
Yeah.
And how did you curate a story that you felt like people would truly fall in love with and resonate with?
I tried to make it as accessible as possible. So I didn't assume that the people I was speaking to knew, what amputation was or had ever met someone living with amputation, anything like that. I had never met someone living with an amputation before I started the company. So
Mhm.
I was basically pitching to myself several years ago. And the story that we came up with that I've actually heard a couple times now in the prosthetics industry is imagine you wear a pair of shoes that doesn't fit and you get blisters. That misfit is the same for people living with leg amputations, except that this is happening to your leg and it's impacting your ability to walk. So
Hmm.
people can really relate to that. We've all worn shoes that don't fit. So you're like, oh, yeah, I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
I know what it feels like to get a blister. Wow, that would really suck if that was the only way I could move through the world. So
Yeah.
it was easy for people to relate to that. And then it's easy for people to relate to inequality. Like we've all suffered challenges, we've all had to overcome things in life. And people can resonate with how important it is to support people from disadvantaged communities. So I would say that that really resonated with folks as well. And then it was interesting because you never knew who you were going to meet. And you would be surprised the number of people we met with that, oh, my brother has an amputation. Actually, my
Hmm.
sister-in-law has an amputation. Actually, met this person through a friend and they had an amputation. Like a lot of people knew someone, lots of grandparents had an amputation. And they're like, yeah, my grandpa fought in, World War One or World War Two, and they had an amputation. So it was interesting how many people, 40, 50%, knew someone or knew of someone
Wow.
that had an amputation and therefore could imagine what this was like. Or honestly, more often than not, this was something that they watched that loved one or friend or acquaintance go through. And like, oh yeah, they
Mhm.
talked about how frustrating this problem was. I saw how annoying this was. Like, we didn't have to sell the story as much to those individuals. And as you can imagine, a lot of people who did end up investing in Vessl um, actually do know someone or are an amputee themselves.
Wow. I think it's so important, because stories really resonate. And when you're selling something or when you're building something that is new to the world, you kind of have to draw parallels that somebody can experience personally. And until that really happens, there's still that gap between the understanding of what you're trying to do and the impact you're trying to make because it's not personal. And it's interesting that this is coming from a fundraising side of things because my company is in the finance world and it's all about money. And one of the biggest things with money is that it's personal. And for fundraising, to get money from investors, it's still
It's
personal. It really
personal.
doesn't change. Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. And now that you've, oversubscribed on your round, huge congratulations to
Thank
that
you. Thank you.
because you were the one marching on stages across North America, selling Vessel, winning the hearts of investors. And,
Thank you.
I've seen some of your pitches and oh my goodness, they're fantastic.
You're so kind.
So
Thank you.
yeah, I mean, you've got the charisma, you've got the attitude, and you believe in what you're doing. And I think anybody looking to build a business, like if you don't have those three things and you don't love what you're doing, like don't do it. It's too hard.
Oh yeah. Oh, honestly.
Unsubscribe.
Yeah, subscribe.
So yeah, so that's incredible. And so now that you've gone from fundraising now into really building the business because you've got, the funds because this is, medtech products do take a longer time to come to market. There's lots more to do when it comes to commercializing a product that's safe for, human use, especially from a medical perspective. Lots of checks and balances, and it takes time. How has it been for you switching from fundraising mode to let's do business
Yeah.
every day
It's
now?
funny. I was explaining it to a mentor of mine the other day, and it's like, the company, when you're fundraising, the company is living or dying based on how you do. Like, if you
Hmm.
can raise the money, the company lives, and if you can't, the company dies. Like, it's all on you. Obviously, you have a team and you've got co-founders, and that's great. But really, it lives or dies with you. And now I'm not the center of attention, and the company does not live or die with me. Now it's on the engineering side. Like they're the ones that have to deliver, and they're the ones that have to build a product, as you're saying, that is safe for use and can be brought to the masses. And then it's back on me, and I have to actually sell the thing. And then again, the company lives or dies with me and my ability to sell. So it's interesting how it shifts. It definitely is like it was hard to get into the fundraising mode. Like that was a not adaptation, something you had to get used to.
Hmm. That's adaptation.
Sure,
Totally.
there you go.
Yeah.
You had to like adapt to that, and the long hours and the like respond to investors right away and the pitching all the time, telling your story 17,000 times a day. Like that took some getting used to. Getting used to. That was the phrase I was going for. And then you
Mm.
also have to get used to, as you're saying, coming off of the fundraise. And so a lot of what I'm doing now is really prepping for that next phase of the company, which is commercialization and commercial sales. So getting
Yeah.
our sales playbook ready, figuring out who are we working with on shipping, who are we working with for distribution, what do our terms of sale look like all of those minute details. That's really what we're building out now, while the engineering team builds the product,
The
so that
product.
when
Mhm.
their product is ready, I'm ready with all the paperwork and the plans and everything to just hit the ground running and start selling.
Yeah. So you've now sort of like flipped things a little bit with your co-founder with a little bit more pressure
Yeah.
in his direction versus you. But you're still obviously working hard day to day because,
Oh yeah.
selling is hard. It's one of the hardest things that anybody can do. If you can sell, if you can convince someone to buy your product, one, you're already a good salesperson. So you raise that round of funding. So pat yourself on the back.
Thank you.
Commercialization is going to be much easier because you can sell.
I hope
Um,
so.
you already did it once. And once you've done it once, you can do it
How
again,
hard can it
right?
be? How hard can it be?
You'll be telling a new story. That's
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
Stories
You're
sell.
right. You're right.
Yeah. No, that's amazing to see that you're able to be so nimble as well, I think a lot of people use that word and don't really know what it means, but like you've done this huge transition and, from one phase to another phase and rather quickly as well, too. And like that's what being nimble, I think, really means is to be able to transition without like too much disruption, and really then start going in that direction, sort of full speed, as you're doing right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think startup is like full speed all the time. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
point the machine in the right direction, but the machine is always going full speed. I feel like that's kind of
Yeah.
how it is.
Absolutely, absolutely. So as we wind down, this has been, such a great conversation, so much reflection we've done already. But one of the three questions we ask all of our entrepreneurs this season is, what is one thing that you're leaving behind in your entrepreneurial journey that you've learned so far? What's one thing you're leaving behind? You just don't want it to be a part of your life or your entrepreneurial journey any longer.
I want to say self-doubt, and I
Mm,
want to say imposter syndrome, but I think that there is a level of that that is healthy and humbling. So I'm leaving behind the paralysis that comes from not feeling like you can do it, but I'm keeping the healthy level of humbleness that comes with feeling like you're stretching a little more than you can handle and being okay with
mm.
that.
But that's real growth. So you're right.
I hope
Yeah.
so. I hope so.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. So what are some of these moments that you feel like truly paralyzed within the business? Is it on decision making? Is it like when you needed to pivot back? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I would say paralysis would come from some of the decision making. Like sometimes you make a decision and you should have made it 3 months earlier, or you make it and it was the wrong one, or you work with you've been thinking about it a long time, you choose a partner to work with, and clearly you should have gone with the other guys, or you do all of this research and it doesn't work out, you chose the wrong option. Like all of that is really frustrating. I wouldn't say that's the paralysis part. I would say the paralysis part, and I can share, a couple days ago, I was talking to a mentor about sales and we started setting some sales targets. And it hit me that I'm going to have to sell devices. And that was a uh, tough moment for me because it's not something I've ever done before. And so it's those moments of like, oh wow, okay. That you have to bring yourself back to. Also, you've never done any of these other things before that you just did. So congrats, you can do stuff for the first time. You're a human being.
Yeah.
But just remembering that I think is good, and being humble is good. But the like paralyzing fear of how am I ever going to sell something? It, comes back to what you were saying of you just fundraised. That was sales,
Yeah.
like putting things in perspective, I guess. So that's what it really is. Thank you for boiling that down. It is not getting sucked into imposter syndrome that is paralyzing, but keeping yourself humble and within the right perspective.
hmm That's so good. That's so good, Sydney.
Thank you.
I love that. Um, so what is the biggest challenge that you have overcome so far in this journey?
I mean, fundraising was probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
On the business side, I think it was fundraising. A lot of startups die with that first fundraise.
hmm
Hardware is hard, so hardware is very hard to fundraise for. And then being a female founder also puts you at a disadvantage. So we were up against a lot and we overcame that. I would say that was the biggest challenge so far.
Yeah. But a challenge you are proud of.
Very proud of. Yes.
Good, good. I'm happy you are. I'm happy you
Thank
are.
you.
Because
Thank
that's
you.
all challenges do. It builds that confidence to let you know when something hard shows up again, I can do it.
Exactly.
Watch me
We've
do
already
it
done a hard
again.
thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
For sure.
Um, and the final one is what is something you're absolutely taking into the future um for yourself or the business?
My network. I love my network. I have so many amazing people that have supported me to get to where I am today. And I'm so grateful that I get to bring them along with me for these next however many years of running Vessel and building this incredible company with people that I love building with. So I'm bringing
Yeah.
my team and my network and my mentors and my supporters with me along the way, which I feel immense gratitude to be able to do.
I absolutely love that because, there's this saying, if you want to go fast, you go alone, but if you want to go the distance, you go together. And I think that is so representative of that.
I've actually
Yeah.
never heard that, and I love quotes, and I feel like I've heard all of them by now, and I have not heard that one. That was
Mhm.
really good.
Yeah, it's a really good one and I think it's a really fundamental one and that's why like I try to make sure that the people around me are such good people for me in every capacity. Because, having someone that's not great for you can hold you back as well too. So
Oh yeah.
you have to be sure of like the right people, the same thing when it comes to like hiring for your business. Like, you know, hire fast, fire fast because anyone can tell you anything on an interview, right? You
Oh
just
yeah.
don't know someone until they actually start doing the work. And if they're just not meeting the standards, you let them go. That's what probation's there for. So,
Yep.
so
100%.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
100%.
Yeah.
I
So,
that was Mhm. Going back to paralysis, hiring our fourth hire, we were too naive hiring the third hire. He worked out. He's absolutely amazing. We love him to pieces. Um,
Hmm.
that just worked out, like, thank goodness. But we didn't know enough to be scared. And then when we were hiring the next one after him, that was terrifying. And we spent so long going back and forth. And our hire is phenomenal. Like, truly, knock on wood, every hire that we've made has just been an absolute game changer for the company. And I'm so proud of the group that we've built.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah,
so amazing. I
I
can't
love
wait
it.
to see where Vessel goes. Just it's going to change so many people's lives. And I think just looking at your face right now, it's so heartwarming for me to see
Thank
you
you.
so happy, because what you're doing is so purpose driven. It has so much impact. Quality of life is everything. And if you don't have quality of life, you don't have good health, which prosthetics can impact significantly. Then what do you really have? So I'm really excited to see where Vessel goes, and I'm excited to see where you go as Sydney and like the incredible entrepreneur CEO that you are in every capacity, and you'll do absolutely incredible.
Thank you, Slice. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. This has been such a fun conversation, and we went so long, and it was so I feel like we could just keep going and going and going and going, and I really appreciate the opportunity to chat, and your support really means a lot, and how you highlight the stories of other founders is phenomenal. So thank you for everything you do as well.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you and, really learning your story from like a deeper perspective, even though we're part of the same group together. It's just a different lens and it's exciting to see. So thanks so much again, Sydney, and we will chat soon.
Absolutely, looking forward to it.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We're so glad to have you as part of our Buzzworthy community as we grow our network of buzzworthy businesses. Continue to follow us on all the social media platforms at buzzworthy_pod and follow us on whatever platform you're listening to so that you can get the new episodes as soon as they're out. This Buzzworthy podcast could not be done without our incredible team, starting with our music by Khaled Imam, our video and sound engineer, James Clark, Yvette Robichaux, our social media manager, Cesar Cardania, our brand and creative lead, and finally, your host and executive producer, Shalacia Harris. We'll see you next week.